Thank you all for jumping on this important press event. Over the past year, our children have been learning in isolation without full access to the ancillary services that schools offer, like mental health and substance abuse services. And, we receive daily updates of the virus transmission, but we hear very little about all of the collateral impact on this pandemic, namely drug addiction. And we've been hearing about how this virus has mutated over the past couple of months, but so has the illicit drugs that are on our streets. And so today we are here to talk about that. Many of our children are inadvertently, and young adults are inadvertently on the streets purchasing substances that they think are things like Xanax and oxycodone, when in fact what they are these pressed pills laced and containing fentanyl. With the stigma of drug use on the decline, we're beginning to see people inadvertently purchasing and taking these substances, 90% of which are illegally counterfeit manufactured. And I think given that the state has done a good job of making Narcan available to people, we don't hear, thankfully, about the drug overdose death because people are being brought back to life with Narcan. But the reality is this has been a very stunning problem that we are seeing on our streets with our young people and with our adults. And so I'd like to just begin this conversation by turning the discussion over to Fiona Firine, who was directly impacted by these fentanyls.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Fiona Firine. 3 years ago yesterday, we lost our Cameron. He was 27. He bought 3 pills. What he thought he was buying was pharmaceutical grade OxyContin. What he actually bought was pure fentanyl, a deadly opioid. The pill Cameron took was pressed and disguised to look like a normal pill. It takes 2,000 micrograms of fentanyl to kill someone. Cameron was given 11,000 micrograms. That is 9,000 micrograms over the absolute death dosage of fentanyl. Narcan was not going to save him. There was nothing that could be done to undo that one pill he took. Cameron did not intend to buy pure fentanyl. Cameron did not intend to die. But because of this crisis of opportunity in our state, he lost his life. 3 years ago, there was not the understanding that there is now on the danger of pressed pills, which led to a misconception that Cameron might have willingly taken his life. I want to thank Representative Candelora and Lisa Deane for bringing this urgent problem forward, because we need to get the word out in our state about this crisis and about pressed pills before we lose more young people. Thank you very much for letting me tell my story.
Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Lawlor. I am a drug intelligence officer with New England HIDTA, which stands for High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas. And I just want to take a few minutes to discuss fentanyl pills. When we look at what's going on in Connecticut and the region, and we see year-over-year increases in fatal overdose deaths, despite all the great work everybody is doing, like Fiona's organization and Lisa's organization and DEMIS and DPH and everybody in Connecticut, and like Representative Candelora said, with the state pushing naloxone everywhere to try and save lives, we need to ask what is really occurring in the illicit drug market to cause the deaths to keep rising. And the short answer is fentanyl. The illicit drug market is very complex, and there's a lot of different layers to it: substance use, the mixing of poly substances in doses of narcotics put on the street. But really the number one issue right now, and the thing that is killing people in Connecticut, is fentanyl. And a major concern in law enforcement and the intelligence community is counterfeit pressed pills, or sometimes referred to as fent pills. And these are nothing more than clandestinely pressed pills to, like Fiona said, to look exactly like your Xanax bar or your Oxycontin. And it is really nothing more than fentanyl. we need to understand as a state that the majority of the drugs we get here in Connecticut and that are sold on the streets of Connecticut are originated in Mexico from the Mexican cartels. The Mexican cartels have ramped up production of fentanyl and fentanyl pressed pills to commercial levels. There is more and more pills coming into the United States each and every day. And some of them are making their way here to Connecticut. The dangers with the pills are there's this misconception when you look at a pill that it was somehow created by a pharmaceutical company in controlled laboratories under guidelines and then diverted somewhere along that chain by somebody who got a legitimate script from it. And that is not the case anymore here in Connecticut. What we're seeing is that most of the pills seized by law enforcement in Connecticut come back testing for fentanyl or other opioid analogs and garbage adulterants that add to some of the effects of fentanyl, like xylazine, which is becoming a major problem here in Connecticut. All these issues are horrible, but I think the fentanyl pills pose a specific risk to our young people who may not really understand the dangers they're getting themselves into because of this subconscious belief that you're buying a pill that was produced by a pharmaceutical company. And that is not what is occurring here in Connecticut, the Northeast, or New England, or frankly, basically anywhere in the country anymore. Most of the pills seized by law enforcement across the country, and specifically here in Connecticut, are counterfeit pills or fentanyls. And we need to get the message out to our young people that any dose of any illicit narcotic bought on the street, whether it's a pill, it's a wax fold, it's a cut corner, whether you think you're buying cocaine, a Xanax bar, an Oxycontin pill, or anything, one dose could be lethal. And you need to use safely. If you're going to use, you need to use with a friend, and you need to have Narcan on hand. And you need not to be afraid to call 911 to get medical attention. Thank you. I appreciate you having me here today. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Lisa Deane from Demand Zero. Like Fiona, I lost my son, Joe, in December of 2018 of a fentanyl poisoning overdose. But this press conference goes far beyond us grieving families. One pill can kill. We need every citizen in Connecticut to understand the information we've received today. The situation is that dire. There are no scare tactics. There are no false alarms here. We are realizing heartbreaking increases in fatal overdoses. In January of 2020, there were 105 fatal overdoses. In January of this year, there were 101 fatal overdoses with 80 cases pending. Even if half those cases turn out to be fatal overdoses, that's 141. Are they all from pressed pills? Some, not all, but now we have to worry about the impact of those as well, and more than ever. From January 2021 until mid-February of this year, there were 121 confirmed fatal overdoses with 264 cases pending. If half of those cases prove to be fatal overdoses, that's a total of 253. In 2020, for all of January and all of February, the total was 195. We, everyone in this meeting, are in the business of saving lives now. By attending this press conference, you've shown your willingness to help us spread this priceless information to your readers and your viewers. Connecticut needs our help. I've spoken to teachers, guidance counselors, even a principal who had no clue about pressed pills. The executive director of Demand Zero, Karen Sicleri, happened to be talking to a teacher in West Haven about pressed pills. The teacher had never heard about it. And who can blame her? Where was she going to find out this information? And there are parents right now who are panicked and they don't know who to call because maybe stigma is preventing them, or they don't even know where to begin to look. it's important that you get the word out that calling 211 is very, very helpful to our Department of Health. And we actually at Demand Zero created an assistant notification sheet. If you'd like the information on this sheet with prompts to guide parents and or concerned loved ones about what to do if their child or loved one or if they're suspicious they're having a problem, they can use this information. We also, about a year and a half ago, did this paraphernalia sheet. We've got to upgrade it to include pressed pills and paraphernalia now. Thank you very much to all the press for partnering with us in this very, very important initiative. And thank you very much, Representative Candelora, for supporting us and for making sure this press conference happened today. And thank you very much, Brian.
Okay, we'll take questions now. Jody Latina from WTNH. Go ahead.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Go ahead.
My question is how are kids getting on the internet? Like, where are they going to buy this stuff? This is the first I'm hearing of it, and it seems odd to me that you wouldn't have to have a prescription. It just enlighten me, please.
So there's several ways. It really, when we're talking about fentanyl pills or pressed pills, they're sold no differently than any other illicit narcotic. A lot of illicit narcotics today are sold on the streets through social media apps like Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, and these types of devices over Kik, WhatsApp, a lot of different just random text messages. That's how a big bulk of pills are sold on the street, just like any other drug. We have to understand, I'm a little older. Some of you are probably maybe a little older. May not be as tech savvy as a 20-year-old who's basically growing up with technology in his hand or in her hand. It's not that difficult to get on the dark web and order pills. That's not how the bulk of counterfeit pills get into Connecticut, but that is one way they do come here. People think of the dark web as this big, hard, scary thing to actually get on and do, and it's really not. It's pretty simple to do. You can download everything you need from your iPhone or your Android device and do it anywhere you want, as long as you have a connection. But by far the vast majority, the over 95% of all drugs in Connecticut come from Mexico over the southwest border, through traditional drug smuggling routes into Connecticut. And they're sold on the street just like any other drug is. So, if we were thinking about 2010 or 2012, how would a 14 to 18-year-old high school student buy pot or buy legitimate prescription pills or buy something else like mushrooms or LSD, on the street through word of mouth of friends or things like that? Just now it's simpler because you can communicate with those people much easier through technology. I hope that answers some of your question. I don't know if it answers everything.
So this could get delivered to a doorstep and a parent would have no idea.
Correct.
Are there laws that, how do you track down the people that are actually providing this drug and shipping it? Wouldn't there be some sort of, I don't know. It just seems like such a hard thing to wrap your arms around.
No, they're investigated just like, we would think of traditional based narcotics being investigated. We have great task force here in Connecticut that are dedicated to stopping the supply of drugs coming into Connecticut. They do a fantastic job. There is just a ton of it coming in, and there is not enough law enforcement to go around. They're doing the best they can with what they have for resources and manpower or personnel power, and but it's basically the same investigative techniques you would use for any crime or any narcotic.
Just the last question, and I'm sorry to overindulge here, but is there anything that a parent can look for on a package that might be a telltale sign that that's not like an Amazon purchase? Is there something to look for? Have you guys noticed a pattern?
So, you really should look for things that, one, you're not aware coming to your house. It won't be coming through Amazon in an Amazon box. It's going to be coming in probably a brown box, just plain with, probably somewhere. It could really be coming from anywhere, but what we see predominantly is things coming from the Southwest border or the West Coast, California, Arizona, areas like that, and then shipped to Connecticut. But it can really come from anywhere. I would say the best thing you can do is be active with your kids, talk to your kids, be aware of what's going on and what's coming in and out of your house and who's coming in and into and out of your house and your kids' lives. I think the best remedy for all of this is connection and being connected to your kids. It's not 100%, Lisa and Fiona are great mothers, it's not that, but I think by and large, you need to have that human connection. I think the stigma is a big deal. I think the stigma around mental health is a big issue, especially with teenagers. We need to break that down and try and get kids the mental health help they need before issues spiral out of control. And a lot of times, I think for younger kids, it's, they're having issues in school, whether it may be bullying or they just don't feel good about themselves. And then they go to the dentist and they get that, that Percocet for the pain from getting a tooth pulled or getting a wisdom tooth extracted. And it makes them feel good for the first time in a long time. And they just want to feel good and normal. And we need to recognize that as adults and parents and, try and help break that stigma down and get our kids the help they need when we recognize it. But it's not always easy. Sometimes, parents are the last to know. Parents are the last to realize that their children have an issue because they put on a brave face in front of their parents because they want their parents to be proud of them. And, they do everything in their power to mask the pain that they're going through. So it's a very complex issue, but I think in general, you just need to be aware of everything going on in your household as much as you can with your children, especially if packages are coming to your house that you don't know are coming to your house or your kids don't want to explain to you. Strange cars pulling up and your kids running out to meet a car and the person not coming in and you've never seen that car before. Things like that, you should be worried about.
Thank you.
We have John Craven from News 12. Go ahead, John.
Hey, Brian, thank you. Hey, so Robert, let me just kind of understand here. So you're saying that most of the fentanyl that you're seeing come into the state, kids go online and order and it gets mailed to them. It's not like something they buy from their friends or someone on the street.
No, you have that reverse. The bulk, when I say bulk, I mean like upper 90% of all drugs that come into Connecticut come in through normal channels. Just like you would think of normal drug smuggling throughout the country and Connecticut. It comes in normal ways, and most kids, like I said, upper 90% are still buying it like how we would think traditionally. You're contacting a dealer to, meet you somewhere or to bring you whatever you're asking for. It has become easier because of technology. Everybody's connected because of technology now. So, back when I was a kid, nobody had cell phones and nobody had pagers. You had to go to one of the major cities and buy drugs. Nowadays, you can go on, WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger and contact a dealer and have them bring it to you. So it's a lot easier to get. I just, the only other part I did point out is, it is possible to go on the dark web and order pills and have it brought to you through parcel services, whether it's the Postal Service or some other parcel service. But that is a very, very small part of what is occurring.
So you mentioned WhatsApp and Snapchat and all. I mean, if I'm a parent, are there ways for me to police that? I mean, without just completely invading my child's privacy?
That's a very good question. I really don't think there is. I think it goes back to you just need to try and be as involved as possible in your kid's life. And when I say that, I understand it's not easy. It's, most of us work more than we should. Most of our kids are involved in 100 activities, including school and sports and other extracurricular activities, along with hanging out with their friends. And, when you become a teenager, hanging out with mom and dad really isn't cool. So I understand it's not easy, but, I think when you look at research and you look at what really resonates with young kids, it's really the connection to their parents, and that their parents over and over again talking to them and not being afraid to talk to them about drugs and being aware of what's going on with drugs. But like I said, it's not a foolproof. Nothing's foolproof. You're always going to have other things that lead to substance use issues.
All right, I don't want to hog my time. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, John, I'd like to just add to that as a parent. I have two children that are in high school right now, and probably their introduction and exposure to drugs come through the school setting, shockingly. But the problem with drugs right now is even with marijuana, the delivery systems now can be odorless, undetectable, and so it's easier to do in the bathrooms. It's easier to do right in the classroom. And so it's important for parents to begin having those conversations. It's not like when we were growing up, when you smoked a joint, you could smell it. And so as a parent, for me, I've had these conversations with my kids, and I've even gone as far to purchase, you can get them on Amazon, you get them at Stop and Shop, but there's drug test kits out there that you could purchase, and you could test your children. One of the things that one of my kids had said is, it's easier for me just to tell kids I get drug tested, therefore they leave me alone. They don't even offer me the drugs anymore. Those are the type of things as a parent, it sounds extreme, but we should be looking at and having that conversation with our kids, because it's incredible the access that they now have to these illicit drugs in places that used to be a safe spot, in sporting events and in schools where you think your kids are safe.
And Vinny, is there anything that you guys can do as lawmakers? I mean, I
think we've started that process. We've started the process with heightening penalties for drugs, but there's always pushback on that. But one of the things we could do is funding the THC detectors for bathrooms in schools. They do have, the nicotine detectors as well for our children. And I hate to say it, but fortifying our schools to at least keep the product out of the atmospheres where they are, where peer pressure is going to influence them. So I think those are the small things that legislators can do, but we're still, wrapping our arms around what this is all about. And I'm very grateful to Lisa and Fiona for telling their stories, because there's a normalization to certain drugs out there. Pot doesn't seem to be a big deal anymore. But knowing now that it's not fentanyl laced products anymore. These are artificially manufactured products with fentanyl put into it, really inadvertently or advertently designed to kill kids and our youth. And so it's important to be aware of that and to begin those conversations.
John, can I say one thing? If a parent has a suspicion or is worried something's not right, invade all you want. They'll get over it. You must, and make a call, make a phone call.
And Lisa, just one last question. If you and Fiona can both just tell us about your kids a little bit, just, tell us, I guess a personal story, how this has affected you in the last couple of years.
Well, Joe started his addiction quite simply with a Percocet pill. That he was somewhere and he told us, and someone gave him a Percocet pill and he absolutely loved the way it made him feel. And instead of just doing it at that party or whatever, he continued to take Percocets and find them here and there and buy them. And then when he didn't have any more money to buy the pills, he switched to heroin. And he had months and months of sobriety here and there, but unfortunately he was triggered at some moments and used again. Right before he went away, he was sober for months and months. Something triggered him. He went into New Haven and bought heroin, and his toxicology report came back that he died of a pure heroin overdose. Joe was like all the rest, a wonderful kid, handsome, talented, great athlete, funny, just like all the angels that have gone because of drug overdose. I wish I had more of this information back then. And when I'm saying back then, I'm saying, 6, 7 years ago when the addiction started and we actually thought that he was drinking too much. I missed signs. It was a woman, a mom of a friend of Joe's, who called me and said, I found needles up in my son's bedroom and I know they're shooting heroin. And then we started reading and calling and so forth. So that's why I'm so happy that you and the other representatives of the press have joined us today to get this information out. It's so incredibly important. Thank you.
So Cameron's story. Cameron was actually the son of my best friend, and he was prescribed OxyContin at age 13 when he suffered a football injury. And Cameron had a very tragic young life. So his dad died when he was 13. There was a lot of chaos in his home, and he was prescribed OxyContin by their trusted physician. And Cameron described it to us as that within a week of taking that OxyContin, it had taken away all the anxiety and he felt good. Cameron became our child at age 16 when his mom died. So he had already been fighting this addiction now since he did his first stint in rehab at age 14, as unbelievable as that sounds. So he's always, his addiction started with OxyContin, but as this happens, and as Lisa just mentioned, that's very expensive. So that progressed to heroin. He fought his addiction with everything he had. He was in and out of rehab. And at the time of his death, he was completely sober. He had moved back with us, so he was living in New Haven. He had become a student at Gateway College. He was suffering addiction. He was actually studying addiction medicine because he felt, as addiction had been such a huge part of his young life, he wanted to study addiction so that he could help others. He was completely sober. He was receiving therapy for his trauma, for his post-traumatic stress syndrome with losing both of his parents. And then the night before his death, something triggered him, and he bought 3 pills. Now, Cameron was always very open about his addiction, and he was very smart. And we know that he chose to buy those pills because he thought he was making a safer choice than returning to, say, using heroin. He thought he was buying OxyContin. We also know that the following day, had those been OxyContin, Cameron would have been alive, and that he would have not only said to us, but to his therapy team, I've relapsed and I need help. But because that pill was pressed to look like an OxyContin, Cameron didn't have that choice. I mean, we had Narcan in the house. The medical examiner told us it was there was absolutely nothing we could have done to save him. He was dead before he hit the floor. Our daughter, his sister, found him on his bedroom floor, and there was nothing that could be done. His toxicology report and his autopsy showed that, as we had thought, Cameron was completely sober up until that night. That one pill, that one relapse, took his life. He was engaging. He was funny. He was loved by everybody. He, despite the hard life he had when he was younger, he was just a wonderful person, and we miss him every single day. And we're angry. We are angry that this could happen. And so we're speaking up because this is a crime of opportunity in our state. This is a crisis of opportunity because fentanyl is so much cheaper to peddle for dealers than selling pure drugs. So the profit margin is so much wider that it's probably almost impossible to resist that opportunity when it arises. And we are incredibly grateful for Representative Candelora. He has worked with us from literally days after Cameron died and helped us and guided us. And he helped Lisa and I work on getting a very important piece of legislation through regarding fentanyl that Representative Candelora could probably explain to you. All I would say as a parent is everything that Lisa said. Do everything you can. If you have a doubt, don't worry. Don't worry about who you're going to offend. Don't worry about your child getting upset with you. Do everything you can to have as much knowledge about the opportunities that they are presented with and the struggles that they may be having, particularly their mental health struggles, and particularly now during this pandemic when they haven't been in school. And that would be about all the advice, that I could give. Thank you for asking about Cameron.
My goodness, I'm so sorry for both of your losses. Thanks for sharing all of that.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.